At what moment did you decide that you just had to be a musician?
Well, I think as long as I can remember, I always liked the piano, and I always liked playing the piano. And my parents are musicians, so, well, they are actually, but they didn't have a piano. My aunt had one, and so I was always playing it at her house when I was a kid. And I remember I begged my parents when I was quite young to take music lessons, and I guess they thought, well, maybe we'll leave it a few years to make sure that he's actually serious about doing it, so maybe that we don't waste money or something. And so I only started lessons when I was 10, I think. Started piano lessons. Yeah, when I was 10. Yeah, that's right. And I remember it always being something mystic before. How do people play music on these instruments? You know, it's like when you can't read, it's like before you can read. And then somebody explained to me, my piano teacher, look, this symbol means this note, and this symbol, you know. And then after that first lesson I had, it was sort of demystified. I thought, oh, this makes sense. I can do this. So from that moment, I guess, I thought, wow, I want to do this. You know, I want to control this.
Right. But you also play organ?
Yeah, I think if you're from a small town like me in Canada and you sort of show any little bit of musical aptitude, they will put you on the organ bench and say, this is what you're doing now, because there aren't very many organists, but there's like a large religious population, so there's this demand. And so as a small musician that wanted to play the piano, I met their supply.
Right.
So their demand, I was their supply. Yeah, that's right. So.
But mainly now you're a composer.
Yeah, I always liked the idea of composing. Shortly after I began piano when I was 10, my teacher suggested, why don't you write something? And this was very strange to me at first, because I thought, well, how do you do that? It's easy enough to write words, but how do you write music? You don't even... But I stuck to it, and I wrote a few pieces when I was a kid, and I had no teacher because I was in such a small town, so I just did on my own. And I was able to sort of self-teach myself, at least up until university. So there's sort of a large sort of autodidact in me, right, that wants to be this. So maybe when I was 15, I really thought, I'm going to risk it. I want to be a composer because nothing means more to me than this at that moment, and I'm going to keep going with that. And I have. So.
And what's been your most memorable musical experience?
Memorable musical experience. There's been so many of them. I mean, I remember when I was, maybe 11 or 12. I'm from a small town, but there's still a little bit of culture there, right? There was a Christmas concert, and sometimes there's an orchestra in my town. Sometimes it comes together once in a while, and then they don't have players, they don't have money, they have to disband. And they were playing a Christmas concert, and I think they were playing movements from the Nutcracker. And my mother took me to that, and it was definitely a memorable experience. It was like my first real-life musical experience to hear, and I was sort of fascinated by the sound, you know, hearing something real in real life. It's not like a recording or something like that. Like the air vibrates, and there's an energy that all these people are working together to make something, and there's an excitement, and there's a spectacle. And that left a big impression on me, that very first concert. Even though I can't really remember exactly what was happening, I remember being really, really moved and impressed by that. Yeah, that was definitely a memorable concert. Memorable musical experience,
Because I'm wondering, maybe for composition,
it's
also different, because if you're not performing all the time, you're having your works performed. Is there sometimes when an orchestra or an ensemble is playing your music that you kind of feel a rush just watching it?
Well, it's usually every time. There was an experience that I had. Now, this is funny. It was when I was doing my undergraduate degree in McGill in Montreal. I wrote a piece that was for violin and ensemble, and it was sort of a programmatic piece, and it was sort of like the Canadian take on L'Histoire du Soldat by Stravinsky. So there's this French-Canadian story about this violin player, and he's playing music for people, and it's in Catholic tradition Ash Wednesday sort of thing, so they have this big party, and then when Lent comes they can't do anything, and so in this story the devil enters him and he plays so well that everybody continues to party, blah blah blah, and everything explodes, something like that, typical sort of story. And during the concert that it became sort of meta, like when he was playing, this soloist, string in his violin broke at the last possible moment, and so he was so good. He had to play everything in his violin in like 20th position up, and then his music stand fell over, and it's sort of like the chaos of the sort of story I was basing it on sort of entered the performance, and you could tell it was really tense. Everybody sort of enjoyed that. I think that was pretty memorable. And it's also pretty memorable to see somebody deal with that. Like his E string broke, so he had to play all that high stuff on the A string, and he managed to do it. And yeah, it's sort of like you see a superhuman thing come, and it was pretty memorable, I think, for me anyway. Yeah.
What do you think music organizations can do better to grow and cultivate an audience?
Organizations, like you mean like a concert hall or an orchestra or a...
I think today anything, orchestras, small ensembles, societies.
Well, I think music organizations are sort of being forced now, especially in this country, to really break out of the mold and try to appeal to people, especially with these cuts coming in 2013. But I think here in the Netherlands they do a fairly good job of that, if I remember. It seemed that in North America, in my old studies, they sort of kept to themselves, so contemporary music was kind of a little isolated, little bomb shelter, nobody dared go outside. But here it seems to be more integrated with the culture in the city, and that's why I came here. But I think that this is going to have to improve because, I think it just depends on the type of experience that they offer. I mean, you can really tell when a concert gives an experience to an audience. You can really feel it. I can feel it. I go to a lot of concerts, and I'm a musician. I've devoted my life to this. So, when I go to a concert of contemporary music, and I feel like, why did I go? It's such a waste. I mean, and it happens pretty often. It happens maybe 8 out of 10 times that this happens. So, I don't think we need much more of that. So I think groups really need to be thinking about the audience in a way that doesn't mean selling out. It's not just this sort of old idea of, I'm a contemporary composer, I'm going to write a piece, and this is what I'm doing. I mean, that's not really going to be applicable, I think, in the future now, anyway, when all the money's going away. So, but again, I think this makes kind of a danger of selling out too, and we don't want that also.
No.
So, I don't know. I think it's focusing on a sort of an experience. Concert experience, if that makes any sense.
And is there anything you wish you could change about the business of music?
Business. For a composer, this is a tricky sort of question because there's a lot of, you see this in everything, I think, and it tends to be the people that are the best self-marketers. So you get a lot of self-marketing in composition, and I really find that. I mean, if it's honest, I guess it's nice, but if it's not, I find it pretty despicable. And there's a lot of people that do that. They're always promoting themselves, and they're always, not in an honest way though, in a sort of forced everybody come in. And I don't know, it seems to me that what I'd like to do in this is sort of not follow that model, so change it, to answer your question, and just do what I like to do, and also trying to promote myself in a really honest way, not sort of a forced way. So I don't like this, I'm not a fan of the huge competitive kind of thing that sort of breaks into creation, because then you see somebody, who's sort of being toady, sort of sucking up to somebody else to get further. I don't like that very much. But that's not just about the music business, that's about every business. And so, I don't know, maybe I wish it were a little bit more open and honest, but that's maybe optimist thinking.
Do you think there's enough new music being played, like at big concerts?
I mean here, in North America maybe. It's such a huge place. In Montreal maybe, for example, where I went to do bachelor studies. Yeah, there's a lot of new music, but there's not as much as here. Way not as much as here, and it's because here it's culturally more significant, I think. And there it also is, but not so much. So
music is more significant, or new music?
New music, I think. I mean, when you come here, you feel like you have so many opportunities as a composer. You have, it's the 500th anniversary of some carillon somewhere. They want a new piece for it. I mean, get this in North America. No, just this sort of application for music. There seems to be this small choral society wants a new piece written for them, or something like that. It seems to be much more rare that in North America, because it's like a little bomb shelter. There's less, it's more institutionalized, I think. just because, I don't know, it's just sort of a feeling. Like Germany, for example, has a really rich new music tradition, and if you compare two places like Germany and like America or Canada, it'd be totally different mindset in people, I think. So I think in North America it's sort of perceived as frivolous, maybe. Oh, what's that? Composing. And here it seems to be going that way too, but not quite yet. So there's sort of maybe a respect, I think, for that, which makes a lot of new music. I mean, here in Amsterdam you have Musicgebouw, right? It's the hall for new music. That shows that it's healthy. But since the director's been sacked, it's a bit, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. I think everybody's a bit worried.
So you've done your bachelor's in Montreal.
Yeah, I did bachelor study in Montreal, so that was 4 years. And then
master's.
And I did a master's. I did 2 masters. I did one in San Diego, in University of California, and it was a good time for me. But I really hated San Diego. Really hated it. And then I came here to Amsterdam because I didn't like the composer that I was turning into in San Diego. I didn't like that. Okay. So I came here to kind of refine myself. And happily I found something that I like to do, so I think I'll stay here until I become bored, or until everything disappears.
And do you have any advice for young composers in their bachelor's degree program right now?
Actually, I think when I was in my bachelor, before, I was sort of self-taught. I didn't have any lessons, so I was writing lots of music, I was just doing what I wanted to do, and then I hit bachelor study, and all of a sudden it's like your innocence drops away, and somebody shows you, look at all this music that there is. You have to try to, and then I felt absolutely swamped. For 2 years, I didn't know what to do, because you're listening to music that's new for you but old, so some Schoenberg, Webern, and stuff, and you think, is this what music is? Do I write music that's like this? And it took me 2 or 3 years to sort of deal with that. So I would say, if you're a young composer and you're sort of feeling threatened or overwhelmed by all this music that you've discovered, you should absorb it, but you should also think to yourself, what do I want to do? And don't listen to anybody else. That's what you should do. Don't listen to consider what your teachers say, but in the end, if it's something that you do that makes you happy, then that's why you're doing it. Because I think you can get really constipated as a composer if you do what others tell you to do. And then it's, why bother, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what I would say to somebody, a young shaver starting out in university.
Right. And do you have any concerts coming up that has your music being played?
I just did a thing in Paradiso with the new ensemble. That was a really strange project. That's past though, but it was these high school students built a new instrument, and I wrote a piece for that instrument. It was a bike, and you play it. Maybe you have a clip on the website.
Yeah.
And I wrote a piece for that, an ensemble. But the next gig I have coming up is a gig in Huddersfield in the UK, which is a piece that's written for this ensemble called Icarus Ensemble. It's an Italian group. And it's a strange ensemble. It has a sampler and an electric guitar and bass and all this sort of. So that I just finished working on. I'm still actually working, and I'm terribly late. So and then after that there are some concerts, but I'm not really sure when the date. Actually, when the date. So stay tuned.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.